What's up, everyone? Good morning and welcome to Shaw Locals Bears Insider Podcast. I am Kyle Nabors along with Sean Hammond here. And we wanted to wait. I know anyone who joined us on Friday morning with Sean and I were talking about then if we were going to record and go live on either Monday or Tuesday morning this week. And we weren't sure how things were going to play out. And then the Justin Fields, everything happened with Justin Fields at the end of the game, the injury. And so I was talking to Sean yesterday and foolishly was like, "Hey, we should hold off and wait until we get some clarity from Matt Eberflus and the coaching staff on the Justin Fields injury situation." And that was naive on my part because there was never any chance that that Matt Eberflus was going to get up at the mic yesterday and give us an actual injury update before he had to on Wednesday, Sean.
Yeah, I think my jaw would have hit the floor if he came out and said anything one way or the other. So here's what the deal is. If you didn't hear Eberflus on Monday, he said Justin's day to day, but when asked if it's potentially season ending, he said we haven't ruled that out. So it's like we know nothing. Honestly, we don't know anything, and the national the reports from Schefter and Rappaport are also unclear. So we're gonna have to just see what develops on Wednesday with Justin's shoulder.
Yeah, so I mean, let's dive into that a little bit because I was watching the Monday night game last night, and so Schefter tweeted yesterday just what Eberflus said that Justin Fields would day to day. He repeated that at halftime last night, but I swear I didn't write it down. Now I regret it, but I swear he said it wasn't a dislocation, and I'm pretty sure you said right before we jumped on. Ian Rappaport said it was a dislocated.
Yeah,
shoulder, right?
Rappaport says per sources that his shoulder was dislocated.
Okay. See, and that's where I figured before we got anything from Eberflus, if it was so like a dislocated shoulder is significant, but it's not season injury, it's season ending most likely. I figured though, like if it was something like that, it probably would end up coming from a national source before Wednesday. That's just kind of the way the league works nowadays. You don't typically that stuff kind of gets floated out there, I think, from the team to the national writers first before it's even broke by the team most of the time.
Yeah, the word finds its way out when you're dealing with, especially a quarterback. When you're dealing with a quarterback who's got an injury, that's something that they're going to have a hard time keeping on their wraps, no matter how badly Matt Eberflus wants to keep that in house.
Yeah, I think. Let's see, Gary popping in here as we start to take some questions. Everyone jumping into the chat early this morning. Appreciate it. I see Gary in here. I see a good friend Mike B in here. I just saw him say no surgery for dislocation. I throw that up there. I probably even shouldn't, but like we're all we can do is speculate at this point. Like I do feel like when you talk about like a 6 to 8 week recovery, Gary, there, like if this was season ending, I do think that in that case, the Bears would probably be more upfront. Like I think they're still trying to figure it out.
Well, and I think they would be more upfront probably come Wednesday. They don't have to put him on IR Monday or Tuesday.
Right.
You're going to wait until, until you return to practice and you actually have to like make a move and get another quarterback in here.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is, Gary, don't assume it's over for Justin Fields this year. I just until we have more clarification tomorrow, it's kind of hard to tell. But so I told Sean, I think the place you got to start, or where I wanted to start at least, the thing that's really been kind of, I don't know, grinding my gears, I'll say, if that's I think that's a Simpsons line there. The thing that's been bothering me when I look back on Sunday's game is that Kyler Gordon penalty flag, the roughing the passer call. And it was funny because the theme yesterday at Halas Hall, you heard it from players talking about, and we got the story up at shawlocal.com now about the Bears wanting Justin Fields to be treated like any other quarterback. And yeah, like it's hard to tell. And things do change just naturally when you have a rushing quarterback, right? Like they're going to get exposed to more hits. And because of that, there's automatically going to be this desire for those flags to fly a little more often, right? Those guys are being exposed more. You want them protected. But when you see things like the Kyler Gordon, where it's literally him sliding and essentially swiping at Marcus Mariota's foot as the ball is being released and the flag come out there, that is the type of play. And really, like there's all this talk about the Bears needing to win close games. And yeah, that's true. Like you'd like to see them pull out a close win against a bad team, like Atlanta, Detroit, teams that they're in games with. But like, the Bears have had multiple games where the officials have had a major impact late in games on calls like that, including that Kyler Gordon call.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're a Bears fan, and Kyle, you're absolutely right to be upset about that call because it wasn't late. Watching it live, I didn't think it was late. Obviously, he didn't hit him in the head. He barely, touched his shoe. And it's funny. I was talking with Jaquan Brisker after the game on Sunday, and he's, he referenced it as Mariota tripped over himself, which isn't entirely accurate. He did hit him, but I don't think it was the most egregious hit of all time. And I don't know that I've seen a whole lot of penalties called when a defender swipes at the quarterback's legs. It's not like you're leading with your head and hitting the guy in the chest or bringing him. I forget what the term is now, where they say when you put your force down on his chest on the ground or whatever, any of that stuff. It was. I thought it was a weak call in the moment, and I think going back and watching it on film, it still is a weak call. And at that point in the game, it's a third down late in the third quarter. It winds up leading to a touchdown that puts Atlanta up 24-17. If you don't have that call, you're looking at, a fairly significant field goal try. And at worst, you're looking at a 3-point deficit.
So Mike B popped in here. Kyler Gordon personal foul for untying Mariota's shoes. And yeah. And so there are two instances that really stood out to me in a pretty close time period with the Kyler Gordon thing. So the one before that, right, that Justin Fields didn't get a flag for before essentially the drive before the Kyler Gordon penalty, right? There's a play there where he doesn't get the call. He's hit. I thought it was a pretty clear. Both knees were down on the ground before the defender started to engage. The play at the end of the game where it should have been a run play, we'll talk about the sequence there on that final drive and how weird that was. But that second down play where he slid and he got popped again and grabbed the shoulder. At first, I was like, well, that's probably a penalty. But when I went back and watched the game a second time, I was like, that's pretty borderline. The defender was clearly already engaging when Justin started to slide. So that one, borderline. But it's when you're having and like I said, it's more dicey on protecting Justin Fields, honestly, to me, than but the Bears, particularly on defense, they've had multiple calls go against them in the last couple of weeks that have changed the outcome of game, or maybe not changed the outcome of the game, but have certainly impacted games late. And so I guess at the end of the day, yeah, you want to see the Bears win game, but there is this full context, and there's no chance. I mean, there's a chance they wouldn't have completed that drive against Detroit. There's a chance they wouldn't have completed the drive against Atlanta. I don't think they were going to. I mean, with the way Justin Fields was hurt in that game, but they are having impact. I think we have to look at it as a full picture when trying to evaluate the offense, the Bears coaching staff, everything right now.
Well, yeah, and you just I would love to know the numbers on how many roughing calls are called on a quarterback inside the pocket versus outside, because it does seem like those calls, like the Mariota one, often come, as the quarterback's throwing the ball, and he's, it's these quarterbacks who are a little bit more, stand up in the pocket and throw it and not really using their legs the way Justin Fields is. And that's sort of, I guess, comes with the territory when you're a rushing quarterback and you're, it's hard when you're a defender and you don't know when the guy's going to slide. And so you have to play the game at the same time. But, with Justin, his style of play is going to lead to those 50-50 calls to the refs. And right now it just feels like they're not getting a lot of those going their way.
No, definitely not. All right. So I got to get the propers out of the way here. We're already 10 minutes in. Thank you, everyone who's joining us. If you are on YouTube, even on Facebook now, they allow you to pop some questions into the chat. We appreciate it. It helps us guide the show, know what you guys want to talk about. Otherwise, it's really just me sitting here trying to figure out topics for an hour. And so it's been great having everyone jump into the chat really helps us a lot. If you're on the YouTube page, hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button, help people find the show, helps us grow the channel, and it helps get more people into the chat. Like I said, it helps us kind of guide the show. If you are interested, and we really do appreciate everyone, go to shawlocal.com, read all of our work. We have a Black Friday deal going on right now. If you're not a Shaw Local subscriber, that gets you all of our Bears content, that gets you all of our content, news content from across Northern Illinois. If you're a high school football fan, that gets you Friday Night Drive. We cover pretty much every high school across the northern half of the state. We'll have coverage of all 8 state championship games down in Champaign. I got to see a guy on Saturday, Sean. Justin Scott is a junior at St. Ignatius High School, which is on the south side of Chicago, has Division I offers from about every power college you could think of: Alabama, Notre Dame, Clemson, Ohio. I mean, like pretty much everyone you can think of, right? Kid is a junior, 6'5", 310 pounds. We're going to be talking about him in the draft about 5 years from now.
Wow. He's what position's he playing out there for him?
He plays left tackle.
Left tackle?
Left tackle and defensive tackle. He'll be a left tackle in college and probably in the NFL. The kid is just gigantic.
Yeah,
but anyway,
certainly a guy to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and of course, follow us on Twitter at Bears_Insider, at Sean_Hammond, at Kyle Nabors. And Sean, I always forget, what's the Instagram for you, just in case Twitter decides to blow up over the holiday weekend?
Find me on Instagram, Bears_reporter.
Yeah, and one more thing, we're only doing the one podcast this week because I will be down in Champaign for the state championships as the sun is just blinding through here. Can you guys see that streak of light?
Yeah, there's a streak of light right in front of you. That's weird.
Get up and do that. Sean, I'm gonna hit the blind for a second. You want to maybe pull up a question here or comment and kind of do that while I scoot over here and grab that?
Yeah, for sure. I'm going kind of out of order here, but we're getting some questions about Larry Borom, and particularly with what's going on that right side of the offensive line. Is Larry Borom healthy enough to back up Jenkins at right guard over Schofield? They really haven't used him at that guard spot. We haven't seen him play guard at all. To go back to the original question, he is healthy. He cleared the concussion protocol. He's been good to go. They've just gone with Reef over Borom at that right tackle spot. And, it sucks when a player loses a job. I don't want to say because of injury, but in a way because of injury, because, Larry got the concussion and at that point they went to Reef, and Larry hasn't had a chance to go back in there since then, even though he is healthy. I'm a little surprised by that, but also on some level not, because, Riley Reef is a really experienced guy. He's played a lot of tackle in the NFL, and, protecting Justin Fields has to be your number one priority. But no, Larry Borom has not played any right guard. And I was a little surprised by the decision to stick with Schofield, even though Matt Eberflus said after the game that Tevin Jenkins could have played in an emergency if he needed to, if there was an injury. You don't usually see NFL teams do that. Have a guy active, and then, not play because he's still kind of dealing with a lingering injury. But I think that tells you kind of where things are at behind those two guys at those spots. I don't think Jatari Carter is a guy they're ready to trust yet. And, I got some questions about Alex Leatherwood too. I think they're pretty much looking at him as a right tackle. We haven't really seen him play any guard at this point. So I think that's why he's not really in consideration for that spot.
Yeah. We had gotten to a point maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago where by no means would we call the Bears offensive line good. I think they said that on the broadcast during the game. I can't remember. Was it Daryl Johnston? Was that? Well, you were at the game, so you weren't listening. But I'm pretty sure like Daryl Johnston, I think that's who it was. I apologize if that's not it. But like had commented like, well, I wouldn't call them like the best line in the league, but like they're getting better. They're working together, and like
they're better than everyone expected.
Yeah, like they had been improving, but it does seem to have regressed a bit over the last couple of weeks. And I do think a lot of that probably has to do with the absence of Tevin Jenkins on the interior. He had really settled in and was playing well at that position. And, just trying to at least have a couple positions solidified when you have so much turmoil on that offensive line really seemed to at least stabilize things. Without him in there, it's been pretty inconsistent.
Yeah, and then you're looking at, I said that Reef, is a veteran and he's been fine, but you're still, when you got that situation going on at right tackle, and then you got an injury to Tevin Jenkins at the right guard spot, then you're looking at a whole side of your offensive line. You could throw in Sam Mustipher at center for now, until Lucas Patrick gets back. You're looking at a whole right side of your offensive line that's kind of a question mark, and obviously that's not what you want. Interestingly, Tevin said that he's been dealing with that hip injury most of the season. He told me that it flared up in the Dallas game, and he wound up sitting out last week against Detroit, and then this week, of course, he didn't play any snaps. And
that's kind of concerning.
It's
to
curious.
Me. So like when you're talking about a guy that dealt with I won't say chronic, but like it was a lingering back injury last year. Obviously the surgery and coming off of that, but like that was an issue, right? And now you're talking about a hip injury that apparently has happened several weeks ago and it's been a problem throughout. You start to worry about that a little bit. It starts to creep into your mind. I'm not saying, once again, like we're not to that point, but it starts to become a little bit of a thing. You start to notice a little bit more and start to keep an eye on more.
I would, if I had to bet, I bet you he's going to be back this week.
I think so.
Just because it seemed like he was close. It's if he could, if there was emergency, he would have gone in there. So I expect we'll see him back at that right guard spot this week.
I want to jump back up to the top of the questions and comments.
Yeah, Kyle, you put me in charge of the questions there for a minute, and I went all out of order.
So Mike B, I was talking about this with him the other day. You bet the under over and over. I guess it doesn't have to snap when you write it that way, or it doesn't have the snap when you. But no. So like that, the Bears. I don't know if you saw, like, I think Sunday night, the opening line for Bears Jets was like 47. And it got bet down. I think it's at like 41.5 or something like that. Now, between like the Justin Fields injury news, and then not that the Jets, even if Zach Wilson was starting, would be able to put a lot of points on the board. I don't know about the chat here, but I think I've seen enough of Zach Wilson. I don't know if it's there. But that got slammed down to like 41.5. And I have a hard time, particularly if Justin Fields is out this week, I have a hard time seeing those two teams, those two offenses combining for 41.5 points.
Yeah, especially if Justin doesn't play. If it's Trevor Siemian versus Mike White or Joe Flacco or whoever, heck, even if it is Zach Wilson, I don't know that we're going to get that many points in this game. It's looking early. I know it's way early. We're talking Tuesday, but it's looking like there's a chance of rain on Sunday as well.
You're way ahead of me on that front. It's a new question popped in, but since we were talking about Tevin, is Jenkins' hip the reason he sat during preseason? Sean,
well, his initial injury, they said, was a back injury.
I thought it was his back again, right?
I don't know that we know for certain if, I tend to, believe that he was injured at that point, but I think there was some question about whether that was real or not. But he says that the hip injury happened in that week of practice before week 1. So no, this is something different.
Yeah, that was the back injury. That was all during the
trade rumors and everything.
And yeah, all that was going on. Yeah, I think that was probably more to do with it than like the hip injury. All right, let's see here. Let's go back up. Gary Ross, if Justin is out, how many sacks does Siemian take? I think the over-under is at 7.5. And then Mike following up, Mike be following. They may not throw 7 times for him to take 7 sacks. And Mike might be on to something there.
Yeah.
Like this Jets defense and this Jets team, like if Trevor Siemian's in there, this is going to be a really run-heavy offense. I think you're going to see Velus Jones more involved in the run game in that scenario. I think you'll see, obviously, they're going to try and get Treston Ebner going a little bit more than on Sunday. I don't think we saw any of Darrington Evans on Sunday, did we?
I don't know that we did.
Yeah. Maybe you see him.
He might have had a couple of snaps, but I don't think he got any touches.
Yeah. 7. I know Mike's joking about they might not throw 7 times, but it certainly seems like a game where more of an early season Chicago Bears game where you could see Trevor Siemian throw the ball between 15 and 20 times in what I would say an ideal situation for the Bears.
Yeah. Just think about if Justin can't play, they've spent the whole last month and a half, really the whole season, trying to figure out how to use his skills and to shape this offense around him. And now you go and throw a guy like Trevor Siemian in there, and it's just going to throw everything out of whack. And I am in agreement that, I think the best plan of attack in that situation is to just feed the ball to David Montgomery and your running backs, and pick your spots with when you really need to throw the ball, because obviously this passing attack still, I know Justin's played better. He's run well. He's had some really, really high level throws, some impressive throws, but as far as the volume goes, it still hasn't really been there. I mean, they're on pace to have one of the lowest, passing averages in a decade in the NFL. And you throw Trevor Siemian in there, and you don't want to really be dropping him back to pass more than you really need to. I think we're going to see a lot of David Montgomery in this game, and it's a bummer that this coincides with Khalil Herbert's injury, because we would see a lot of him too. And
Yeah,
I
that's
think
true.
that's just going to mean Treston Ebner is going to probably get his best chance so far.
You talking about Justin there jogged a play that I wanted to talk about. We've rightfully, there's been a lot of praise for Justin Fields over the last month or so. A lot of improvement in his game. You can see the decision making is getting better. Still not perfect by any means. He's still learning to read the field, but you're starting to see the progression that you need out of him to feel confident that it is going to come. The deep ball accuracy is usually pretty good. Uh, the play that I was thinking of, though, and I'm not trying to say this is something that, like, is a long-term risk with Justin Fields, but when you're talking about the margins of trying to win games and where the Bears are in this rebuild, that play to Darnell Mooney early in the game should have been a touchdown. Like that when the Bears are ready to win football games, that will be a touchdown, and that has to be a touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, the defensive back fell down, and now that's after Justin's already released the ball. At that point, you can't really
But he
make
knew
a safer throw. But
he knew where he was going with the ball before the
yeah,
defender. That was a one-on-one
right.
situation on the outside. He was
And
going to Mooney.
at the last second, the defensive back falls down, and Mooney is wide open, and the ball lands, maybe five, not very far, maybe 5 yards outside of his arms. You're right. That's a ball that you have to have, and it would have been an easy touchdown for Darnell. At the same time, I think it's really easy to pick apart missed opportunities in the deep game, just because those are some of the most difficult throws he's going to make all season. And
They are, and so here's the other thing. I criticize it, and I
Mhm.
the other thing we don't know on that is, so, like, as you said, when he released the ball, the defender was still there. That ball sailed high, or the ball sailed long and outside.
Mhm.
But I'm not sure that he didn't leave it out high and outside on purpose. Like, he overshot it
Yes.
either way. But, like, the question there, and then this is above my pay grade, and I'm not a good enough analyst to know this, but I do wonder, like, they certainly looked at that play on film and talk, and I wonder if they were like, that's where you need to put the ball, or in that situation where there wasn't a safety, where the safety was not going
Mhm.
to get to recover. And they said it's okay to leave that ball inside a bit more and let Mooney kind of fade inside and get to it and run it out, instead of trying to fade towards that sideline. So, but I don't know if, like, he
Yeah.
intentionally did that or if it just floated that way.
Well, yeah, that's kind of the question I have too. And it's on plays like that, it's usually, the receiver and the quarterback usually have a target on the field. They're going for the numbers or the hashes or whatever at this, roughly at this yard line. And we'd have to talk to Justin and to Darnell and see which one of them was maybe a tad bit off on that particular play, or if something, that was, whether it was something the defensive back did or something the pass rush did, kind of threw them off a little bit. And I was a little bit annoyed that we only got to talk to Justin for 4 minutes after that game, because we spent half the time asking him about his shoulder and then really didn't get to analyze much of the game. And that was a little bit of a bummer.
Yeah, hopefully you'll get a chance to talk with him on Wednesday and find out a little bit more, or talk more about the game on Sunday. Gary had popped in here with a question about us talking about betting. Do you think being able to bet on NFL games has anything to do with the awful calls? Since no, the awful calls were occurring before, and we talked about it on the podcast last week. Like, we bring up the calls, but if you watch any other game, you're gonna find plenty of bad calls in the NFL. Like, the officiating has been pretty inconsistent for, I don't know. I mean, it's always inconsistent. It's the human nature of the game, but what I was saying earlier is it feels worse when you have a quarterback like Justin Fields, which is mobile and running so often. Those plays tend to stand out more. But yeah, there's missed calls every game. I don't think it has to do with betting. I just think it's the human element of football. You wish it wasn't so apparent sometimes, but I mean, these things happen.
Yeah, refs are going to make mistakes. That's a part of the game, and I think everybody realizes that. And really, unless you allow every single play to be reviewed, which would make the game 5 hours long. I mean, I don't know that there's a whole lot you can do about that other than just teach. Keep looking at the review in the film and saying this was a good call, this was a bad call, and try to be better next time.
Timothy Wire checking in, going back to the Mooney conversation. Mooney took responsibility for that play, said his legs were tired, so he wasn't at full speed. I didn't see that comment, but I don't know. Did you see that?
I missed Mooney's media session. I was over talking with Cairo Santos at that point, and I didn't hear what he said in front of the cameras.
Yeah, it was pretty. That was early in the game.
It was pretty early in the game.
Yeah,
but you'd have to look at what play they ran right before that. Sometimes that has an effect on whether a guy's at. If Mooney ran a long route the play before that, I could certainly see that.
Gary chiming in. I love Gary because like he tosses the questions that actually make me feel dumb sometimes. So he like this is the guy Gary knowing his NFL practice squad players. Do the Bears look at Anthony Brown off Ravens practice squad who runs similar scheme to Fields over Peterman if Simeon gets hurt behind our terrible O-line? Gary, that is some next level question.
Deep.
Yeah. I'm going to be completely honest with you, Gary. I have no answer for that, man. I have no idea. But I love the fact that you are thinking about stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the Ravens find those guys who sort of mirror Lamar Jackson, Caleb Huntley being one of them. We saw him at Soldier Field last year. So I don't know. Maybe they got another one down there it sounds like they might have another one down there on the practice squad.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm going to try and go through here as I'm sorting through these questions. One area that we haven't discussed yet, and I want to throw this in the chat and get people talking about it because I'm interested to see their take now, almost 48 hours since the game. We got some clarity yesterday on that last drive with the Bears, right? So you get the first down call. And that surprises a lot of people because it's clear Justin Fields is struggling. They've been working on his hamstrings between drives. You can tell that he's hurting. We already knew that kind of. He talked about it during the week. So the first down run surprises people. But, if he's in the game, if you're Luke Getsy, I don't really hate the call. I'll be honest, because that's the way you want to run your offense. And if Justin Fields is in the game, you're trying to win the game. You want to rely on him. I get it, right? So I'm not going to bang on him too much for that first down call, though it's a little weird, I guess. The second down call, we got the clarity on, though, because people were wondering, why did you run it again? Well, it turns out it was supposed to be a handoff to David Montgomery, right? Justin Fields ended up getting popped a second time there. See him grimace, hit the shoulder, throws a pick on third down, ball sails high. Game over. Okay, so I guess the thing though is, and this is, I've had a lot of praise for Luke Getsy over the last month or so in his ability to adapt with what's been given to him and the adjustments. All have been really encouraging, and I do think, and people I know are immediately concerned over that. I think he'll learn from it, but that second down call, like where they were at on the field with the time that they had left. Okay, it was a messed up play. They weren't, he's supposed to hand it off to Dave Montgomery. I hate the play call anyway. Second and 9 run, when you need to be picking up chunk plays, like it was a bad call.
I might hate the call, but I'm also not surprised based on what we've seen from this. They haven't been afraid to run the football in any situation, Kyle.
Yeah, I get it.
So, I'm not surprised, but I do understand what you're saying. Like that's
right.
2nd and 9, a minute 42 left in the game.
So, and that's where, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but this is where when people talk about like you want to see the Bears win a close game, you want to see them win the close game with Justin Fields kind of leading that charge, right? And like at some point, yeah, like your offense is a run first offense. I get that. I completely understand that. But you like the next progression in a rebuilding year is trusting your quarterback on a second and long situation where you need to pick up chunk yards to make a play downfield. Like, so it just
That
you saw that, or you saw last week on the Bears' first drive last week. They had a second and long, run the ball. They end up taking the field goal. Right? Don't want a negative play. There was a drive in that game, in Sunday's game. I can't remember when it was, where there was a situation where it was a second and long, maybe a second and 15, and it was I think it was a draw play. And it's at some point, you want to see them become more aggressive in those situations.
Yeah, because you're right, Kyle. I mean, there's times for that. When you're in field goal range, sure, I get that. When it's earlier in the game and you're content to take your 3 points, then I understand running the ball on 2nd and 9 or 2nd and 15, whatever. But you're talking about game on the line under 2 minutes. You're looking at a 2nd and 9, and that's a situation where, yeah, you would like to keep the ball in Justin's hands, and you wonder, how much all the injury stuff played into that. But at the same time, Eberflus said that Justin told us he was good to go, so he's good to go. If he's out there, you expect him to, just like on first down, you're gonna, if he's out there, if he's healthy to play, if he hasn't said that I don't want to run the ball, my legs are tired or whatever, or hurting me or whatever, then I understand. Then you wouldn't have run the ball. But he was out there. He seemed to indicate that he was good to go. I will say that the trainers were really stretching out his hamstrings throughout much of that fourth quarter. You couldn't see that on the game broadcast, but they were working on him, and he was on the exercise bike and really seemed to be dealing. He said afterwards he was dealing with cramps. But again, if it was that bad that he didn't feel like he could run, he would have said something. So, you're unless something's wrong, you're not going to change your style, and that's why I think Justin, that's why I think Luke Getsy called that first down run for Justin, and yeah, that second down play. It's weird looking at it too on the film because Justin doesn't look to hand the ball off to David, but David also doesn't appear to look to take a handoff. So I don't know where the miscommunication happened. Obviously, at some point they screwed up that play call, and somebody messed up. But it seemed like both those guys, at least to me, looked like they were on the same page. I don't know. I don't know if they were for sure, but yeah. And then it's unfortunate that Justin takes another hit. And, he seems to grab for that. He wasn't hit on that left side, but he did grab for that left shoulder after that.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I to kind of add a little bit more on that, like you've seen the emergence of the passing game in terms of like Darnell Mooney, Cole Kmet. What a grab in the first half.
Yeah.
That's what you want to see. Like we talk about like the explosive plays that we thought you'd see out of Cole Kmet those first few years. Obviously, the touchdowns are finally come on, but now you see a grab like that, and you're like, okay, like I'm starting to see it a little bit now. Like, so you're feeling better there, but you made the trade for Chase Claypool, and again, not featured very much in Sunday's game. But like, you're trying to find out what you have. In particular, and we can get into Chase Claypool talk, but like, you gave up a second round pick for Chase Claypool here, and we're now 3 games in, and I did think, whatever, that second game, it's a step backwards. I thought that was just a blip, and we would see a lot more usage of Chase Claypool this past Sunday in Atlanta.
I'm willing to wait. I'm willing to be patient. I think, I do understand that fans are eager to see him and to see him be more involved, but I do kind of believe what they're saying, where it's hard to learn an NFL offense, and it's hard to. I mean, think about how many plays they ran in that game. That's I'd have to look, but any single game, you're talking 60, 70 plays, certainly usually around 50. 40 is a pretty low number if you're not holding onto the ball very much. And I mean, that's a lot of stuff to figure out, especially for a receiver where, it's not as simple as run block, pass block, and on the offensive line, or take the ball and run if you're a running back. it's pretty complicated to figure this stuff out. And, it's really only been a couple of weeks. And I do really think we're going to see Chase Claypool get more and more involved as we go on. Now, if we're still talking about this in late December, then I'm going to have some concerns.
Gary Ross says Fields had Claypool in the end zone, and it was one of the passes that hit his defensive line. Watch the all 22. Yeah, I actually know the play you're talking about. Yeah, there was a potential at least for the touchdown there. Thinking of that, how about Justin pounding the ball off? I think Michael Schofield's head.
Yeah,
that was. He's done that a couple times now. It's a bit odd.
I should have gone and asked Schofield how he was feeling after that, because that was a laser of a pass too, and it went right off the back of his head. That was weird when that happened. I don't know what it was like watching it on the TV broadcast, Kyle, but I was so confused about what just happened, because it was like the ball just was, you didn't see a defender in that position. And I guess, the replay obviously confirmed that it went off his lineman's head, but I was really confused with what happened when we were watching that live.
Yeah, I was too. Let's see here. Alan Dunlap with last week, Getsy was being called a future head coach candidate. His play calling in the Falcons game won't go to the top of his resume. Yeah, it wasn't his best game as a play caller, but we all have bad days at work. It's a little more noticeable when you're an NFL coach, but things have been trending in the right direction. I've been really impressed with Luke Getsy. He didn't have a great game on Sunday at times.
And you know what? I think Luke really learns from his mistakes.
Yeah,
I think we saw that early on this season.
Yeah, and that's the most encouraging thing.
Yeah, I think he's going to learn from that game. And that's the thing about the NFL, man. You got 11 guys on the field and all these guys on the sideline who have jobs. And if one guy's having a bad day, it's gonna mess with the whole mojo of the offense.
Going back to that final play, the interception, Timothy Wire says, did you look at film on the interception? I saw one tweet that speculated the pass was to Mooney, who was running a route that took him behind Monty, and he deflected the pass right in line for Mooney. I don't think so. I think he was looking for Montgomery there. I think the ball sailed because of the injury, though. I think it was because he was favoring the shoulder. And it just, when you have a situation like that, things are going to sail a little bit, and it happened in that case.
I think the ball sailed. I don't know if it was because of the shoulder.
Yeah, I should just say.
There was a little bit of pressure at the end of that play, if I recall.
He didn't. I don't think he had his feet completely set. He didn't. I think everything I should say. I think everything combined kind of to let that ball sail a little bit.
And Justin said he was throwing the ball to Mooney after the game. I asked him about that play, and he said, I'm sorry. Yes, Montgomery. But yeah, you look at the film, you do see Mooney, those guys are kind of crossing and at that point, they're almost at the same spot on the field. But yeah, I just think he sailed the pass to Montgomery, and that's what he said. So I'm inclined to believe him in that situation.
Might be. I like Claypool more than I should. He does. He loves Chase Claypool. He's a Notre Dame guy to begin with. So, but Velus Jones and Byron Pringle shouldn't be seeing more snaps over Dante Pettis at this point, let alone Claypool. Yeah, Byron Pringle, a guy that I actually liked. I thought that was a decent signing. As critical as I was of the Bears not being more aggressive in the wide receiver market, I did at least understand why, when they were going the cheap route, they went with Pringle. I thought there was some upside there. I liked him as a player. It hasn't materialized. I wouldn't be surprised to see them shift away from him. Harry was not active on Sunday with an illness. And once we saw that news on Sunday morning, that pretty much confirmed that Velus was going to be active. I want to throw this in the chat here I want to ask this question to the chat. How much of a sigh of relief was there when Velus Jones had that long kick return? To see a positive play out of him. Did everyone feel better? There's been a lot of angst over Velus Jones, and I understand it, but good to see a big play for him. And I'm sure he felt great having a big play, Sean.
That was a little bit of redemption for him. Yeah, that was 55-yard kick return. It's really good to see that from a guy who was struggling early in the year. And obviously kick returns and punt returns are really different animals. But you can really showcase his speed on a kick return. You give him a little bit of space, and you saw it with that return. The guy can move, and I think the Bears are going to do what they can to keep getting him the ball in those situations. We've been saying it for a couple of weeks. They're not going to give up on him yet. Obviously, he was inactive there for a couple of weeks, but each week is different. And if they get a chance to put him back there, I think they're going to do it.
Yeah, we got multiple comments and questions coming in about that. Mike Johnson said, "Wish they had run a jet sweep." Mike B with Velus is a serious athlete. He's just not a wide receiver. Gary with no, I didn't feel better, referring to my question from earlier. He should be doing that as a norm. Gary, man, just kind of cheer up, buddy. Get him as a power running back. Yeah, that's I think that so one thing that I took away with the conversations last week was talking about Cordero Patterson and the Atlanta Falcons talking about simplifying things and just getting the ball in his belly as quickly as possible. And you might not be to that point with Velus Jones yet because he is a special athlete. You want to see, I don't know if the Bears want to shoehorn him into like that running back role more. But I completely understand why fans feel that way, and it does seem like that could be trending that. I don't think they're ready to completely say, well, he's not a wide receiver, but I don't know where this is going to go, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I don't know where this is going to go either. But you also got a rookie running back in Treston Ebner who hasn't had a whole lot of chances. I think they're going to give him some more opportunities, in that running back spot before they're going to, start experimenting with Velus Jones in that situation. I do agree that, it would have been maybe nice to see another sweep. He's had success on those plays. Maybe get him the ball once or twice more on offense. He's not gonna be a featured receiver in this offense right now this season. But you got to find some ways to get him the ball because you see it on that kick return. I mean, that speed is elite speed. You just got to get him the ball, and that's what the Falcons have done with Patterson. Just put the ball in his hands. You take out having to catch the ball, having to pass, protect, all that stuff, and just find ways to get your best athletes the ball.
Gary had followed up. I am happy. That's good, Gary. Glad you're happy, man. However, when you draft a returner in the third round, I expect he can have big returns, and we shouldn't praise him for the one time. It's not. I'm not praising him for the one time. It's more the question I asked earlier was the fact that my biggest concern for Velus actually is when you have a guy that all of a sudden is a third round pick and you're making him inactive is does he come back from it? That's not great for someone, and it's good. It's just good for his mindset when you want to see him over the last 6 weeks of this season produce. It's just a step in the right direction for him to get him going is what I'm trying to say.
And Kyle, you started this conversation off with the question about whether Bears fans were nervous when Velus Jones was back there for the kick return, and I was more interested to see what his kick return was going to be like on that kick in the fourth quarter with 2 minutes left after the Falcons had just taken a lead. And unfortunately, they booted it through the end zone for a touchback. But in my head, I was saying, okay, it's the fourth quarter. Velus, his two back-breaking mistakes came in crunch time in the fourth quarter when the game was on the line. I wanted to see him get a chance there and see what he could do in that situation, but unfortunately that didn't happen, and we'll have to wait for next time.
He didn't get to have his Cordero Patterson moment there, which that return for Patterson, awesome to watch. He's a great guy. It was, so it's cool to see him get that record on a personal level for him, but also just I think it was who was it? There was someone in one of the stories that you wrote talking about. Despite on Friday, I wanted to think the Bears.
Oh, it was probably Jack Sanborn.
Yeah, I think it was Jack Sanborn, which I want to talk about him and the defense in general here. But they had talked about we knew he was strong, but even knowing he was strong, it was still surprising just how powerful Cordero Patterson is with the ball in his hands.
Yeah, Jack said exactly that. He was bigger than I even thought he was going to be. And you know what? When you meet that guy in person,
yes,
you don't think that this is a wide receiver or even a running back. He's just an absolutely massive human being. I don't know what he is. And maybe he doesn't seem to have a position. He's just an incredible athlete. And it's crazy how fast he is for his size, because that should not be possible. And you saw The speed on that kick return when he hit about the 35, 40-yard line and he saw a lane there and he just turned on the jets, that was crazy.
He is he's incredible, man. So like I said, we're 45 minutes in here, and we haven't really talked about the defense at all outside of a little Kyler Gordon talk. But um, yeah, it was another week where the Bears had zero pass rush. And let's talk about that in a minute. But I wanted to start with your reaction or your thoughts on Jack Sanborn and ask the chat what they thought of Jack Sanborn's performance on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a decent game. Obviously the Bears didn't have any sacks as a team, and he certainly didn't have any. Not like the week before when he was making some really big plays with the interception that was wiped off and the 2 sacks. But I still see promising things. I think he's always in the right place in the run game. You look at that. When he was referencing that Patterson was bigger than he expected. He and I were talking about that 4th and 2 play where they handed it off to Patterson. This was just before the field goal, a couple of plays earlier, that wound up winning the game. And Jack made a great play. He had him in the backfield and he just couldn't wrap him up. So I think that, like I was saying last week, the instincts are there. He's in the right places at the right time. I think he's just got to work on finishing a little bit.
And there was so that play you're talking about came, I think it was the very next play after Jack had actually made a really nice play on the sideline, ranging pretty far to his right, I mean, all the way to the right. I think it was Cordero Patterson. I can't remember if it was a toss or what it was, but it was to the left side, and he was able to get there and meet him and limit the gain. And I was like, well, there's that lateral speed that and those instincts that you like to see. And then the next play, yeah, he can't make that tackle in the backfield, and kind of shows you the sides of Jack Sanborn right now in terms of there is potential there, like we talked about on Friday. Like, this kid played at Wisconsin. He was a captain on that defense, a very good Wisconsin defense. There's a lot of talent there, but there's still some limitations. And I think you saw both sides of that coin in a really quick succession on Sunday.
Yeah, and you know what? He's just gonna keep playing him, keep getting him experience. I think that's the number one thing that he's gonna learn from some of those mistakes. A lot of these young guys are, um, and we started off by talking about that Kyler Gordon play. I thought Kyle was playing a really good game. Relatively. I know the defense as a whole kind of sucked, and it has for several weeks, but Kyler was making, he was in the right spots at the right time, and it's a bummer that his day had to end short with going into the concussion protocol, because I thought he was playing well too.
I thought the secondary overall was playing a strong game on Sunday. For the most part, that's been the case. Like, the secondary, is young and getting better, and what you really expected and hoped for when they spent those 2 picks on Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker. But at the end of the day, and as Gary said, why talk defense when they are awful every week? And
that's fair.
and defense bad enough said, Mike B says. And yeah,
defense
well,
bad.
We're talking about it because you're looking for pieces here, right?
You're watching those rookies.
Yeah. I mean, you're looking for the kids, but man, the defensive line just is getting zero pressure. And there was a play early in that game, I don't remember when it was, where the Bears brought the house. Alan Williams actually did blitz. I want to say he brought 7 on the play. I think it was a lot of pressure. And Mariota, who, for his limitations, has always been really good about getting the ball out quick, he did on that play. But it was kind of like the idea of, we keep talking about needing to get more creative with blitzes and stuff, and you still see the limitations even when the Bears do that. He beat it quickly. It was about a 15-yard pickup, easy first down, and it's like, well, what can you really do in that situation?
There's risks you take when you do that, when you pick those spots, and that's one of the things Alan has talked. We've asked him about that a lot, because it's clear that the only time they're getting any pressure is when they blitz. So, you say, okay, well, blitz more, but you're really exposing yourself on the back end. And I think you're going to see that against a veteran quarterback who's seen a lot of football, like Marcus Mariota, even though he's not a Tom Brady, but he's been around the block. He can pick, he knows when there's a blitz coming. He can see what's developing in front of him. Whereas maybe a young guy like a Davis Mills, who we saw earlier this season, or some of those younger quarterbacks might have a little bit more trouble picking that up.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reason guys like that he sticks around. You saw it last night. If you watch that Monday night game with Colt McCoy, I mean, Joe Flacco continues to get jobs. And these aren't, they're not great quarterbacks, but those veterans guys that know how to beat a blitz and at least keep a game in a manageable situation. I mean, that's what you're looking at when you have an inexperienced defense like the Bears. Those guys are good enough to take advantage of bad defenses. We get a question from Mike Johnson. We were talking about watching the rookies. How many rookies are seeing significant minutes on defense? Obviously, you got the two kids in the secondary, Jack Sanborn, Dominique Robinson. I believe Dom Robinson's a rookie, right?
Yes, he's a rookie.
I said it, and then I immediately started to doubt myself there. Who else?
Well, so Brisker and Sanborn played nearly the entire game. Dominique Robinson led the way as far as defensive ends in snaps. Now, Travis Gibson left the game for a little while with an ankle injury, although he did come back, so I think he's going to be okay. I think Travis would probably be leading that snap count at defensive end, but you're talking about a lot of snaps for Robinson. And then who else we got here? Yeah, Kyler is playing more than 70% of snaps as well. I'm sorry, he's usually playing the whole game. That's because he went out with the concussion. So yeah, you're looking at, I mean, that right there is 4 rookies who are playing almost the entire game defensively. You could throw a couple other guys in there who are Velus Jones, the cornerback, has been getting snaps when guys are injured. And, if Kyler can't go, I expect we'll see a little bit more of him this week. Those are the guys who are really sticking out.
Yeah, triple R, as we decided on last week. Number 91, 57, 60, or 6 and 9, all rookies starting on D. Would like to see Weatherford, Gates, and cornerbacks. Yeah, as we get deeper into the season here, I think you're going to start to see some of those practice squad rookies, some of these guys we haven't seen, get on the field a bit more. The other thing I wanted to say, or another thing I wanted to throw up here from Gary Ross, Travis Gibson has regressed. Dom Robinson is good at chasing plays, but he needs to be more than one move. Yeah, I mean, that was, Dom Robinson, we weren't sure, obviously the Robert Quinn trade has given him even more of a path to playing time. But you look back, like coming into the season, Dom Robinson was a guy that we had talked about as a project, right? Like we
didn't know if he was going to play at all this year.
Right. So yeah, like you're seeing the limitations and why we thought this was more of a project for Dom Robinson.
And he's a guy who didn't play on defense until halfway through his college career.
Yeah. And then Travis Gibson, that's fair. He has regressed. And the one thing I'll say there is I thought when he got injured, I actually kind of feared the worst there. I thought that was
I did too.
I thought that was going to be a bad injury.
I did too. He was down on the field for a while.
Yeah, and it was right around the knee, if I remember right.
He got rolled up on by a teammate.
Yeah, I'm like, well, that's the end of that season, and I was shocked when he came back out on the field later in the game.
Yeah, I was as well, because that looked really bad, and he was in the injury tent for a while. And then he came back out, and they were taping up his ankle, and he was kind of testing it out, and he may have come in for a snap or two right before halftime when the Falcons got the ball back, but I don't think he really. I don't know that for certain, and he may have not come back until after halftime. Give that thing a little rest.
All right. Well, so we're heading towards an hour here. All the questions have been great. If there's anything we haven't hit on yet, throw it in the chat. We'll try and get to it before we get out of here. But we really, since we're not, once again, we won't be here on Friday at our normal time. I'll be down in Champaign for state high school football. So I do want to hit on the Jets and Bears for Sunday. But honestly, Sean, like there's not a lot to talk about on that front right now because we don't know the quarterback situation really for either team.
Play quarterback for either of these teams. You look at the Jets. I feel like it could be any 3 of those guys right now. I don't know if you saw, Kyle, that I didn't realize this until I was looking into the Jets more yesterday, but Joe Flacco was at some point demoted to the 3rd spot.
Was he? I didn't realize.
Yeah. So Mike White is second on. It has been the active quarterback behind Zach Wilson the past couple of weeks. So I don't know who we're going to get from them. If You would think, Joe Flacco was all right early in the season. He was slinging the ball around.
Yeah, I mean, the Jets, were kind of the talk of the town, or talk of the NFL early in the season. Them and the Giants, much better start than we expected. Like I said, Zach Wilson is not it though. I don't see that coming back. Even if he plays in this game, like I almost feel more, or like I feel more confident in the Jets winning the game if Mike White or Joe Flacco started. And I feel bad about saying that for a kid that is only in his second career and is on a bad team. But it's just I'm not seeing anything that points in the direction of him figuring it out though.
Well, yeah, I mean, unfortunately for the Jets, that's kind of where we are. You're not seeing it, and he was supposed to be his big trait was supposed to be his ability to make these big throws and create. And he's not creating outside of the pocket at all. I mean, that has not been his game. I think the numbers kind of back that up. He is the Jets are not completing passes once the quarterback leaves the pocket, and obviously they weren't going to do that with Joe Flacco earlier in the season, but Zach Wilson hasn't been able to do that at all, and it's been bad. It's been rough, and I think that game against the Patriots was that was as bad as any of them have been. That was probably the worst effort.
Though that game on Sunday between the Jets and the Patriots was brutal. Those are the type of games sitting through. I'm sure Jets and Patriots fans were miserable on Sunday. It's just not a lot of fun to watch. I want to quickly, though, get a word for our sponsor in here, Marengo Guns. Always buying and always paying top dollar for your guns, ammo, and military items. Come see the experts at Marengo Guns. Open 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week. Gary here says Jets trade their 2 first rounders to Bears for to draft another QB in the top 3. If the Bears end up there, I mean, that's I don't want to get into a lot of draft talk with the Bears right now because who knows what's going to happen over the next month, in terms of wins and losses. The Bears, while a lot of people talk about, it's going to be hard to find another win on their schedule if they can't beat the Lions and Falcons. But the NFL, one, is weird. You see bad teams beat good teams every week. But if Justin Fields is playing, that always is a wild card. And they're in those games. So, I don't want to just rack up a top 3 pick for the Bears. So, I guess slow the roll on that. But that would, one that opens up options, whether that's a wide receiver, offensive tackle. I haven't even started to look at how a board would draw, the big board's going to work out. But yeah, being in a third pick and being able to trade down if you're the Bears for a team that's desperate for a quarterback would be great. But the other thing I wanted to say here, Sean, and with this is, and I think this is a good place to wrap it up as we go into an hour here on a positive note. If anyone here, and I think pretty much everyone that's in the chat right now is a regular here and who's been with us for a long time, knows we talked about going into the season was we had the conversation a couple different times of if things fell apart with Justin Fields, would Ryan Poles start looking at the draft at those quarterbacks, right? And obviously that's not the case. Bear fans should be ecstatic where Justin Fields is. But I bring it up because the future of the franchise, despite all the glaring holes and the issues with the Bears, it's a lot easier to paper over those holes when you have quarterback figured out and you see the Jets. The Jets are in that scenario that we talked about at the beginning of the season with what happens if Justin Fields, the wheels fall off it. That's what you're seeing with Zach Wilson right now. And how quickly, there are players like Breece Hall out for the year. Love him, though. I like Garrett Wilson. I like a lot of the things that the Jets have done in this rebuild. But it's starting to really look like they've missed on the quarterback, the most position on their team. And that's what I'm trying to get at here. For all the rough patches for the Bears this year, you're going to go into this offseason, well, at least they have the quarterback to build around. And that automatically is going to give the Bears an advantage going into the offseason.
It's going to give them all the advantages in the draft. And, wherever you are in that draft order, if you wind up, not even as high as 3, but let's say you wind up at 5, 6, 7, there's going to be teams that maybe want to move up for a quarterback, and you can move back a few spots and get even more draft capital for later in the draft. And yeah, you don't have to. If the Bears had to worry about a quarterback, they're not, that wouldn't even be an option because you'd probably be picking a quarterback near the top. you're certainly feeling a lot better than the Jets are at this point. And honestly, you're probably feeling a lot better than most of the teams that drafted in 2021 that took one of those 5 quarterbacks. Outside of maybe Trey Lance, who we still don't really have enough film on to know what he is.
Yeah, we don't. The injury was unfortunate. It's hard to take too much away from that week 1 game against the Bears. I will say this, Jimmy G last night was slinging it. I was impressed with the Niners offense last night. They looked much better. I mean, it was against Arizona, who has completely given up. That's a disaster down there in Arizona. But I like this San Francisco team coming into the year. I thought there was a chance that they were going to be a Super Bowl contender. With the way they're playing now, I'm starting to feel like that they're going to be right there come January.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team that, even when you're sitting at, I don't know what they were, 3-3 or whatever, they've been kind of in that mix in the middle, but it would not surprise me to see them in the NFC Championship game come January.
Yeah. Anything else you want to hit on, Sean, before we jump out of here?
No, I think we pretty much hit on it. Yeah, I mean, I'm not at any point to make a pick yet in this Jets Bears game. There's just
we're not. Yeah,
too many unknowns at this point.
Yeah, if I tried to make a pick, I got to send out our reminder email to the staff here that if you guys go to shalllocal.com over the weekend, we always pick our staff picks. I try and send it out early in the week, particularly on a holiday week like this, just to remind everyone to get those picks in. I don't expect anyone to send those picks before Friday or Saturday, as we all wait to see what this situation is going to look like. But yeah, for now, let's go ahead and get out of here, Sean. We're at an hour. Thank you, everyone who joined us live this morning. Again, if you're on the YouTube page, even if you're not, if you're on Facebook, find the YouTube page for us, Shaw Locals YouTube page. Hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up on this video. Again, it helps people find the channel, helps us grow the show. We really appreciate that. Grow the show. I hate when I say that. It makes me feel like Mark Trestman, grow the football. But yeah, what I'm trying to say is we really do appreciate everyone who jumps in and joins us each week. Stay at shawlocal.com. Throughout the week, we'll have a lot of preview content here heading into Sunday's game. For now, we're going to go ahead and get it out of here. For Sean Hammond, I am Kyle Nabors. Thank you, everyone who joined us this morning. Everyone have a great Thanksgiving. Enjoy the holiday. Enjoy spending time with the families. And then have a great weekend of football. We get 3 games on Thursday, some good college football on Friday and Saturday. If you're a high school fan, 8 games this weekend. They'll all be broadcast on TV and Friday Night Drive. Not broadcast on Friday Night Drive, but go over to Friday Night Drive. We'll appreciate having you over there as well. With that, thank you, everyone. We'll talk to you next week.